I was a man on a mission. I had just one condition. I was gonna live life my own way. I said, all I need's a miracle. All I need's a break. All I need is this wound to heal, to give myself a chance. I set my feet back on the street, an engine heart that revved in me. When I hit that gas, I had one speed, to keep it going from the lead. I said, all I need's a miracle. All I need's a break. All I need is this heart to feel that no one's catching me. Yeah. Let me state my position. I was a man on a mission. I had just one condition. I was gonna live life my own way. And in the heat of trouble, I will not back down. And when they try to push me off, I'll climb back up that hill. No one's gonna break my spirit. No one's gonna pull me down. I live my life with all my rage and all my love for living strong. They can't control the spreading fire, some they just let it burn and burn. Yeah. Let me state my position. I was a man on a mission. I had just one condition. I was gonna live life my own way. I said, all I need's a miracle. All I need's a break. All I need is this heart to feel that no one's catching me. Yeah. Let me state my position. I was a man on a mission. I had just one condition. I was gonna live life my own way. Yeah.
Hello, welcome to another chat, another sit down. I don't know what to call it. I don't see many people here, but that's my fault because I deleted a lot of people. I blocked a lot of people that were hostile, and I was advised not to block any more people. So I'm not going to try to block people. I'm just going to let them talk to themselves if they're going to say the wrong things. So anyway, tonight I'm going to talk about, Phil Rusty Rostelli and Carmine Galanti. I was right at the start when they both became anointed bosses to share the power, which was the 1973 from the blessing of Joe Bonanno himself from Arizona. I don't think anybody knows that. I don't think everybody has the knowledge, like the movie The Godfather. He claims, Joe Bonanno, that the movie was, The Godfather was dedicated to him. And then the some other people say Joe Pavacci. So anyway, there's a lot of stories. But I was at the beginning when Rusty Rostelli and Carmine Galante were sharing the power. Now they were both in prison. One came out a year before, then the other guy got put away. So the tonight episode is about who had real the power while he was in prison and while they were in the streets. So I was a young guy then. I guess I was 20 years old. I didn't know I was an immigrant, a Sicilian. Some used to refer to as zip, greaseball. So I guess I was one of them. But I didn't, I didn't face me words. Words are cheap. So he was a guy in his 30. When I was 20, he was 30. So that was his mentality. I had to give him respect because we were related to marriage. So, and I was new. I was new, in the Volkswagen. So I didn't know really too many people. I was the outsider. Always been the outsider, as I am here on YouTube. But tonight I'm happy to tell you that I have 5,000 subscribers. Maybe not officially that they're paying for subscribing because I never asked, to subscribe and give money, a month or just to subscribe. I don't even know what is that about yet. I'm learning as I'm going. So, but I got 5,000 subscriber within 4 months. I got 4,000 subscribers. Either got them from Facebook, Instagram, because I belong to a lot of groups. So the people who subscribe, they coming in, they checking in, they're watching my videos that I post, since the last 4 months. Some of them are videos, some of them are live chat. The live chat is about 2 months old, which I didn't know how to do it, but I got here and I'm doing it every week. You know, um, I'm getting in now. I know how to get in. I don't know how to do anything. I'm still afraid to push button because I don't know if I could mess it up. Because I would like to do photos, like all the other guys podcasters do. Put in pictures while I'm talking to you. Or show other things, that are very interesting to share. Like photos, from the past. So anyway, I'm just bringing out what I'm up against here, and I'm gonna keep on doing it. And I'm gonna see if I learn as time goes on, little by little. So I got one guy stalking here, and that's Piki Nebiki. I don't know. I can't believe how fast you have sub have gone. I started watching when were like 500. Congratulations, Jackie boy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Like I said, I belong to a lot of groups. Mafia Legend, Mafia History. I was involved with the Bonanno crime family. I don't know what happened to them, but now they just got, which was the two groups. They got Bonanno era still there. Everything about mafia, the Five family, the Gambino family, John Gotti, the Mob Kings, uh, La Cosa Nostra. I belong to about 50 groups. which are a lot of mafia groups and Italian groups, Sicilian American groups. So that's why I'm getting these people to come in, and because I tell them that they don't have to pay to subscribe; it's free. So that's how I got the 5,000. People say I'm buying them. I don't know, but everybody's got their own story what to say, and that's how I got the 5,000 subscriber. But I got a lot of people I blocked because they hostile. I don't know. Everybody said call them haters. I don't know. There could be enemies because everybody has enemies. So anyway, I'm going to talk about Phil Vastelli. I was in the launch wagon, so I got very close to the Vastelli family, which very close to Mari Vastelli, the older brother, actually the second older brother from the four brother Vastelli. There was a Lou Vastelli was the oldest, Marty Vastelli, Carmine Vastelli, and then there was Phil Vastelli. Phil Vastelli was the third, the second, what is it, the third, in the chart. Lou, Marty, Phil Vastelli, and then Carmine. Carmine was the baby. They were older than me, so uh, that's how they were. They were very close. Uh, Phil Vastelli, in a way, what I learned, he was the bad boy out of the four brothers. His father always got on top of his case, and he was involved in the streets. And that's. But he grew up. He was Napolitan. You know, second generation Italian American, and he made his bones in the street. In Red Hook, not Red Hook, Greenpoint. That's what he's from. I'm from Red Hook. That's where I grew up. So I'm not a guy that keeps records, dates, and everything. I just got everything in my head. The events, what happened, all the things that happen. I don't have no dates. People say I don't have the exact dates, the time this happened, but they agree with what I'm saying. They just don't agree that I have, when I said the 70s, 69, or whatever fucking year, excuse my language, it's not important to me. What's important to me that I was there in 1973, and they were both anointed bosses in the Bonanno crime family to run the Bonanno family under the blessing of Joe Bonanno. So they were both in and out of prison. I don't know exactly the months or the dates, but I see them come in, I see them go out. Now, I never met Carmine Galenti because I was close to Phil Rastelli. So they had like a rivalry between that. So, but I met Nicky Marangelo. Nicky Marangelo was the underboss under the Carmine Galenti regime. And I met him through Joe Messino because Joe Messino, at the time, he had a problem. He didn't know which way to go. He had his JJ Deli, but Rusty was in prison, and Carmine Galenti came out, and he had to make a decision which way he's going to go because he could get whacked. Because he told me himself, which side I should go. I got to go with the power. And apparently, Carmine Galenti had the power because he was in the street, and Rusty Rastelli was in prison. But Rusty Rastelli was in prison, but he held the power from prison. And he had control. He had a lot of respect because he's been in and out of jail. He had a lot of black, Spanish, Italians, that look up to him in prison. So he could hold any power from prison that he would give contracts if somebody had to get wiped out, being killed. So people fear, Rusty Rastelli. Yeah, but Carmine Galante didn't fear Rusty Rastelli because he was powerful too in his own right. He was a killer too. So, but he was in the street. So whoever's in the street tries to rule. So there was this big conflict. So uh, I was very close to the Rastelli. So I never went the other side, but uh, John Messino did. He went in alliance with the Carmine Galante, and that's who made him. In 1977, that's who made him. That's who anointed him to become a member, and other guys too. So, but John Messina played both ends. So, who had the power? If John Messina wanted to go on the side of the power in 1974, he went with Camangalenti because he was in the street and Rusty was in prison. So that was the Cold War between them two, but they were both part of the Bonanno crime family because Joe Bonanno was watching from Arizona what's going on. So now Carmine Galante was not a businessman. He was a thug, a hoodlum through his fucking life since the beginning. So and he dealt with heroin under Vito Genovese, during the 50s. So that's all he knew. So he made it his thing to get involved with the heroin. So and Rusty was not involved with the heroin. Rusty was involved more with unions. He was involved with bookmakers, numbers, uh, you know, uh, controlling, business, extortion. That's what he was into. And there were two different things. So now Kamagalante had to make his bones regarding, he had to move some people out. So he recruited a lot of Sicilian guys, like Padre Catalano, um, uh, Bonaventure, Cesare Bonaventure, Baldo Amato, uh, the Licata brothers too. Now, Don Pietro Licata, he was the active boss in the street in Knickerbocker Avenue. And he was not related to the Licata brothers, that they had the coffee shop or Fresh Fire Row, Forest Avenue. The coffee shop was located on Forest Avenue. They had the coffee shops. They were doing, gambling in the coffee shop. But they got involved with the heroin too. So there's a lot of shifting was going on between the Rastelli crew and the Camangalenti crew. So, and a lot of people wanted to make money. So that's why now going back to Greenpoint, you know, Sadi Black Napoletano was really the acting boss under Rusty Rostelli, and there was the Sonny Red and Delicato with the Giancone, Trinchina, other captains that they were close with Sonny Black. But now the power was shifting between Camagalenti and Rossi Rastelli. And Camagalenti had the heroin, which a lot of people wanted to get involved. A lot of people were involved. The Gambinos were involved, and then that's when the war started. Who was going to control this heroin? So, and Camagalenti started whacking some people out. And the first guy he got rid of it was Don Pietro Licata because he controlled Nicapaca Avenue, he controlled the zips, and they were, all the coffee shops were under his control. So, so Camagalenti first move was to get rid of Don Pietro Licata, which he was, Don Pietro Licata was allied with Rossi Rastelli, because he goes back with the Joe Bonanno times. So they killed him. Then he killed some people from the Gambino. That's how he became enemy number one from the Gambino. He got rid of some guys, Genovese too. They were in the Capaca Avenue, like I've said in the past, that the Capaca Avenue was not just the Bonanno crime family running the Capaca Avenue, Ridgewood. There were the Gambino, there was Genovese, and there was the Bonanno. So they all share the power there. And Carmine Galante started really taking people out. And that's how he became the outsider in the eyes of the crime family, the commission. So, and Rossi Rastelli, the only thing he was doing, it was, studying. He was out of the way, so he couldn't do much, really, because, he didn't want to cut his own right arm, trying to kill some people, within the Bonanno crime family, because he was really anointed, by the commission to be the boss of the Bonanno crime family back, 74, 75, but Cama, Galante took it away from him because he was in the street and he had the goods. And a lot of the capos were shifting towards Carmine Galante because the heroin. Everybody wanted to get involved with the heroin and make money. Uh, Rossi Rostelli was in prison. He couldn't do really nothing. The only thing he could do is buy his time, you know, live for another day. So, meantime, while he was in prison, he was asking Marty, his brother, he wanted the books, on the Roman Empire to read, wanted to get education because he didn't have much education. He was just like me too. He didn't go to school. He quit school. So, but he was in prison. So he had to make the best of it to stay busy. And he wanted to lead because he had the blessing to be the boss in the Bonanno crime family, which Camagalente didn't have it. But he claimed it because, he had the goods. He had the heroin. And he thought he had the muscle, but he really didn't have the muscles. He had the people that they would jump and ship from Rusty to go on his side, like Tomasino did. and then the Delicato did with the other captain, the Tranquina, Giaccone, and Lilo. You know, a lot of guys. Everybody shifts to Carmine Galante. So the only thing Rusty could do is read books, and I will go around with Marty, go searching for these books he wanted to read, you know, and then you know things were happening. People were getting killed. You know, I didn't keep no tab. I didn't keep no records because I got shot myself in '74. So I was out of commission for 2 years. You know, dealing to try to get back healthy because I had to go through surgeries because I had a very injury. I had a colostomy. Had holes that had to be repaired. So I was out for commission for 2 years, and then I didn't want to stay near them. I mean, I stood close to Marty because Marty was like Marty Rastelli. He was like my second father in a way. You know, I looked up to him. He knew the ropes. He was the brother of the boss. So I just wanted to stay friends with him because, when you mingle in with all these people, you know that these people, they're always going to be there. The mafia, you guys call them mafia. But the organized crime, I knew that's what it was. They're always going to be there. No matter what part of New York you go, you're going to mingle in with them because the five families, they got a lot of members, a lot of soldiers. So you needed to have somebody on your side to make sure that you could do things because I was in business. I was running car games. Had pizzerias. So I was willing and dealing in the street. So you gotta, you're gonna get noticed by other wise guys, and they all want to know who's this fucking kid, who's this guy, who's he with. First thing they always did, who's he with? Because the five crime families in New York, everybody was connected to somebody. So you don't want to step on people's toes. So you always want to know who the guy is with. So if you're not connected with nobody, the wolf's gonna eat you up, or the vultures. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Wolves, vultures. So that's what it was. So I know better. So I stood away from everybody. I stood close to Marty, and I would do chores for Marty, driving. So anytime that I was free, I would drive him New York. I would drive him to Brooklyn, Staten Island, anywhere he wanted to go. I would do that. I would not get paid. It would be like family. You're doing a thing for the family. So that's what I did. So after I got better in 1977, Carmine Galletti was still out. He was running the show. He was the boss in the Bonanno crime family. Rusty was in prison, but Rusty held this man from prison. And whoever got out of line, they whack him. So whoever was against Rusty knew that they had to watch for their life. They were in danger. So this went on through the years. I was not involved with Carmine and I was not involved with what Joe Messina was doing at that time because I was away from him, and I was away. I just stood in Glendale doing my thing, you know. I asked Marty, I'm going to open up a candy store. I'm going to have a poker games in the back, you know. And he was telling me, you got to be careful. There's a robberies going on. Always put shit in my head that I got to watch my step. If but Glendale was an open town. Nobody was there. Only the guy Tony Guido was there. And Tony Guido, was an old timer. He wasn't really doing a lot of things any longer, because I got to know him. So I was friends with him too, because we put in his pinball machine, the jukebox, and any business I opened in Glendale. So he was happy. So if I ran a poker game and I pick up a sports and I jet off to him, he was more than happy. And that's what I was giving the edge off to. Uh, so, and that's on the 77, 78. Then I met, other people, the Corazzo brothers. They came into my place, they played. So, like I said, now Rusty was still in charge of the Bonanno family as a boss, but he was out of commission because he was in prison. But Camagalenti was out, and he was running the show because they were supposed to be together. But Carmine wanted the power. He wanted everybody. He wanted everything, and that's why came time in 1979. They killed him, and who killed him? It had to be Rostelli's man. Who else could have been? And that's why Joe Messino came on the side again, of Rusty Rostelli. So he was playing the both sides. He always done. So the same thing. He played probably both sides between the street and the FBI because they had him, for hijacking. They had him, for running gambling operation with the JJ Deli. So, you don't know what goes on through the years, and maybe they squeezed them. You know, they were going to face him to put him away in prison, and maybe made a deal like Gregory Scarpa, and that's how now I've been talking about Donnie Brasco. He was infiltrated in Bonanno. So what I said last time about Donnie Brasco, why didn't he, you know, uh, uh, attack, Joe Messino, get information about Joe Messino? Because he was already busted a few times. They picked him up for hijacking, in the mid 70s with this Irish guy. I don't know his name. And the other guy ended up turning rat, And Joe Messino, they had him, but he never went to prison. So that's how I began to suspect Joe Messino that he was dirty. He was not a guy you want to socialize with. And same thing, he was doing damage to me, which I think, he knew about I was going to get shot. And he didn't protect me. My lunch wagon was getting tire slashed. My Trans Am got shot. The window shot to put fear in me. And there was a lot of shit going on. So I just had to do what I had to do, and I knew how to stay close to Marty Rastelli, because he was my rabbi. You know, do you guys know what rabbi means? I don't know, but I got some people here. I'm even afraid to read because I gotta just ignore it, let everybody talk to each other because I don't know. I just don't want to. I'm gonna have a sip of wine. Okay, I see names in there and the chat that are very disturbing. So I'm not gonna look. I'm just gonna do my story with with the people they in the background that they're gonna eventually watch my show. After I get off, doing my live chat stream because I'm not seeing people here that want to be participating here because there's people that attackers that they want to attack for anybody comes in on my side. So I wish they stay out and let me deal with them. I'm used to dealing with tough guys. Tough guys. Well, I can't really say these guys are tough guys, and over here in the chat in the computer because they're not. They're just freeloaders. Some of them, they just go from show to show and try to participate in everybody's show. So I'm gonna talk about Rusty Rostel. So Carmine Galenti got whacked in 1979. That I remember because I was in Glendale. I was running my thing, and I was going to New York. With the Carrazzo brothers. So there was a big thing. When I met Marty, I didn't ask what happened. I just asked him, "Is that good for us?" That's what I asked him. Is that good for us? You know what I mean? Because I was part of the family. Is that good? So he would smile and bow his head. It's good, So that's it. Then Rusty Rostelli was the official boss. Now he was coming home. So when he came home, it was a big party. Joe Messino threw the party in Maspet, with all the wise guys. Everybody came, even Sonny Black came and they held court. And I happened to be invited because of Marty. And when I went to this big event, all the wise guys, John Messina goes, "What are you doing here?" Says to me. Now, Marty was not too far from where I was because, Salvatali was there, part of the family members were there, you know, that I was close to from the lunch wagon, from the Rastellis. So, they gave me a big welcome, but not Joe Messina. He said, "What are you doing there? Who invited you?" Just like that. So Marty turned around. I invited him. And Joe looked at him. What's he going to say? He's going to say nothing because Joe Messina threw the party. So he did all the invitations. But Marty told him, is with me. I invited him. And then he says, I don't know what you got with this kid, but he's a good guy. You know, he's a good guy. I don't know why you have a problem with him. And that was it. And Joe, that's it. He stood the fuck away from me. He never again did attack me with anyway. Because he was always, in reality, he was always afraid of his own, what could happen to him. He didn't want to go to prison. He didn't like prison. So he had to make a deal with the feds because he wanted to go. That's why Donnie Brasco had the word probably to clear up from Jomicino. Don't implicate him on anything because they wanted him out. Because that's what they were doing. Everybody was stationed. The FBI had, as I remember later on, when I got more experience in the life, they had squads, FBI squads, one for each crime family that they would go uh, supervise, watch them, every move they make, and that's how they operate because they always wanted to take over the gambling. They wanted to take over everything, and they did. At the end, they ended up take over everything and put everybody to jail, put everybody in prison. So that's what they were doing. And then you also had the uh, what was tobacco and army aging, army tobacco aging, going after the heroin, drugs, liquor and tobacco. Am I saying it right? You guys are Americans, so you should understand what I'm saying. So there was a different organization. There was then the organization task force, detectives. They were going there. So everybody had a job to do. So were they all good guys? The cops, they were not all good guys. A lot of true history they wanted to take. They were making money. So that's how they mingle. That's how Joe Messino, for instance, got hooked up with the feds or with the organized task force, and they give each other information, who's who, who's what, and they get protection from the law. This way they cooperate and do what they want to do, and then I get bothered with. So now that's what I'm trying to tell you. Rusty Rastelli was always the boss with Carmine Galanti to share the power under the blessing of Joe Bonanno himself. Like in the movie The Godfather, that he went to, what was it, Nevada, like Tahoe, whatever, and he was living there, running, the family from there. So that's how the idea started. And, you got Anthony Accardo from The Office, New York, from Chicago. He did the same thing. He took steps back, and he had Giancana, put him in position to be the boss. But really, Tony Accardo was the boss. Ayupa. I'm not. These are all names that I was familiar with. That I did follow ups. To learn about the mob in America. So just to have some kind of know what's going on, who's who, who's what, just but I didn't give a shit. I mean, I had to worry about what I had to do, because I went through war. I almost lost my life. I lost all my business, and I just wanted to get back and make money. I wanted to have a strong hand on my side. That's why I chose the Rastelli because he was the boss. Who's better to be to the boss? Carazzo, they were, soldiers. They were not big deal. I mean, in the life. Even Fritz Giovanelli was a main guy. John Gotti was a main guy. Joe Messina was a main guy. So I was associated with the Rastelli family. So who was better than be with with the boss? And that's when Marty Rastelli told Joe is with me, and told him, "What do you got with this kid? What do you got a problem with him? He's a good kid." I was in my 20s, so I was a kid. Am I a kid now? No. Now I'm an old man, and I got all these young guys attacking me now. From the podcast, this Amazon. But you know what? I had my friend, Primo, told me he bought 3 books from me without no question asked. He just wanted the 3 books that are behind me. The fathers believe the 80 mobsters and making my bones with the mafia. He didn't fucking. He just wanna. He's from Chicago too, and he wanted 3 books, signed books, and he's a good guy. He wants to know. Am I bullshit artist? Am I a liar? Does he believe everybody that attack me? He wants to see for himself. Now he's going to get the books by Monday or Tuesday, so you got to give him time to read. Maybe it comes up, in the podcast here, and he could tell me review because he can't write a review if you don't buy the books from Amazon. So maybe he could share his experience over here in my chat with all the guys they hear. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell. So anyway, so Carmine Galenti got whacked off. He got killed. He got put out. And I told Marty, is that good for us? Because, I was with the Rastelli. And I know there was a friction between that. And he shook his head. It's good. That's it. He didn't say nothing else. He didn't talk much about family business. You know, he would just tell me, don't do this, don't do that, don't go there, don't do this. He would just guide me, who to associate it with, and if I was associated with certain people, he will like the Corazzo, even the people for Fritz Giovanelli. He let them know he's with me. He's with me. He's my friend. Make sure you treat them fairly. Just to let them know. So that's why I could do business in Ridgewood. I could do business in East New York because I had his support, and people did business with me. No question asked. And Joe Messina couldn't do shit about it. The only thing he had he had obligation then because once he got made, and especially later when he became a capo, especially when he became a boss, from him doing what he did, declare me with all these people, now he's responsible because they're going to look at him. So then, in my way, I use that for my advantage, if you understand what I'm talking about. So I could do what I want to do as long as I don't step nobody's toes and do anything wrong, with other people. Keep my mouth shut, close close my eyes, close my ears, play dumb and blind and deaf, and just worry about what I got to do. And that's why, through the years, you know, I decided to move to Long Island. But before I did that, I was in the middle with the Corazzo, with Fritzi Giovanelli, uh, Joe Messino, Trudy Francese. I had all these people that I was mingling with in a way because I was getting stuff to give them, to sell. Who the fuck are you gonna sell stuff for? You don't know. You got jewelry. Who are you gonna sell jewelry for? I don't know. I didn't have a jeweler friend, so you give it to them. And they would peddle it, whatever they did. They give me, I always took a quarter of what did the thing cost. For instance, if a thing costs $1, I take 25 cents, because you got to give room for them to pedal. Because they got to pedal to they give it to the closest people to them, and that's how it worked. Does anybody know that? I don't think so. So that's why I'm having this talk with you guys. Now, I got 6 likes, and I got 15 people that hear. That's pretty good for all the guys. I got 7 likes now. So push like, subscribe. It's not costing anything because right now I am concentrated on keeping up building my number and my watch hours. So we'll see what happens. But I got real story. I got the story of the street with the 5 family in New York. I don't have bullshit. I'm not talking somebody with no experience. I lived the life. Now I've been talking about it. I wrote the books, my experience, my story. That's what the books is about. My story, what I did, growing up with these people and all the obstacles I had to deal with. And now I'm coming to share my story because I've been trying to share my story in the mafia groups on Facebook, and people attacked me by saying, "Nobody ever heard of you. Who are you?" Gino, because I used that nickname. And I was growing up, I used Jack. I didn't use Giacomo. The girls gave me the name Jack because the Irish girls, the black kids, they could pronounce Giacomo at the time in the 60s, late 60s, when I was going to school. They were not too much familiar with immigrants like they are today. Today everything is immigrant. Now you got the Southern American people invading America. You don't get too much Europeans coming in, but you get people from working third class country. Am I saying it right? I don't want to offend anybody, but they're good people. They come in here to make a future in America. So the Italians are now established, the Irish are established, the Jews are established, the Germans are established. So now you got the South American coming in. Is that right? South America? You know, so they're coming in to make a future in America. And there's good and bad, like everything else, there's good and bad. So this is what I've been trying to do is to create my channel and try to share my knowledge or experience with real bosses, couples in the crime family. Now, New York, it was the golden goose of organized crime since way back. There could be a lot of crime family in other part of the country, other states, but there's one family here, one family there, one family, or they all feel, but they all feel off because they came out from New York, and that true gave them the blessing and the support, the enforcers if they need to, and that's how the union. The AFA, doing AFA, all the things was from New York, the commission, the five families. But the five families in New York are gone. They're gone, and since 1985, 19 when Giuliani took them all down. Now, it wasn't just Giuliani; it was the feds, Washington. They wanted to wipe them out. So Giuliano took credit that he wiped everybody out. He couldn't do it without Washington because they gave him the rein to lead the horses to attack. And you can't beat the government. And but you see what happens to Giuliani. Giuliani had to pay back because I did a show. Pay back is a bitch. But a lot of fucking people don't understand what I meant when I said pay back. Everybody starts trouble and they don't know they're starting trouble with. They're always going to pay back. One way or another, they're going to pay back if you're fucking around and dealing with good people and you're trying to hurt them. You're going to pay the price because only good people move forward. Bad people, they get destroyed. And it's a known fact. Carmine was a bad guy. They killed him. There was a lot of guys that got put away. So I don't know. The only guy I know that got away with it was Semi de Gravano because the government protected him. The government, the feds, they took everybody, all these guys that ratted under their wings. See, I'm jumping the story now because they want to make sure they stay alive and show everybody that it's good to rat. It's good to become a rat because this way they recruit more rats, more informants, and they control everything by doing that. So that's why it's not easy to like they were trying to get rid of some of the bull Gravano while he was in Arizona. There was people that were going to kill him, and the feds intervened. Am I saying it right? Intervene. Same thing. They were trying to kill John Gotti when he worked out the boss, Castellano. There was people coming from Sicily. They wanted him out. They wanted to kill him. The Lucchese in America, crime family, wanted him out. The Genovese crime family wanted him out. They wanted to kill him. but the feds protected him. They had actually cars under covers following Gotti everywhere he fucking went. And they will watch whoever came near him because they took a few shots at him on Ozone Park right in front of his club. And that was never mentioned because I knew about it. I heard about it. They took a shot, but it was never published in the newspaper because they could control that too with the editors. So who's really the mafia? Who's really the big shots? Like my father told me as a kid, always said the government's the power. You always got to fear the government. You always got to show respect to them. Don't don't trash because they got the power. He was talking to me because he knew about Rome, the government, how they were bad to the Sicilians, and they didn't even acknowledge Sicily. They didn't even acknowledge Calabria either. They from Naples up, they respected their knowledge, but the lowlifes were the Sicilian, the Calabrese, in their eyes, in the Roman government. Now, in the American government, let's say, who were the bad people? The Sicilians, the Calabrese. They were the bad people. Not the Napolitans, they were not bad because that is the business they had from Rome to America to come back, I mean fight the organized crime. So that's how they supervise and always they control everything. So they always went after the Sicilians and after the Calabrese, and they left the Napolitans alone. And that's what it was. So now let me get back again about in the 80s. So I had to because Joe Messino claimed me, that I was his nephew. I belonged to the Corazzo brothers, and I could do business with the Corazzo. So this is always going back because a lot of people always going to come in, and I gotta replay the story. So tonight was about who was really the bosses in the Bonanno crime family in the 70s. The big boss was Joe Bonanno from Arizona. He appointed who was going to run the crime family in New York, like in the movie The Godfather. I don't care what newspapers or podcasters, you know, Jerry Carpathian. Fucking Jerry Carpathian didn't come into 1975, 1976 to become a journalist. Before him, it was Jim Breslin. Jim Breslin. He was the crime reporter for the New Daily News, New York, or he worked for the Post. I think Carpathian was not working for the Post. So Breslin was for the Daily News. Or it could have been New York Times. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. I don't keep tabs. I just know who was who. I don't have records, the day, exact moment. I'm not a I'm not a follower of the legacy of the mafia. I'm telling you the story what I lived, the time period, the time frame, and that's what I'm doing. I don't know exact this time, the exact date, the exact month, the exact year. We're talking about 50, 60 years in my head. Everything is in my head. I didn't keep notes. I don't write notes. I scribble. Look, I'm handicapping horses. I don't know. Can you see that? I'm handicapping horses. That's what I do. Scribble, and then I take the scribbles, I rip them, and I throw them in the garbage. Right now I'm keeping notes because tomorrow is the Belmont Steak. So I got to play the Belmont Steak. So that's my enjoyment. A push of a button, I could bet, I could go to Canada, play Canada, Woodbine. I could go to New Jersey. I could go to Monmouth. I could go to Gulf Stream for my home. I could go any track. So, I could go to Tokyo too. They have races, Dubai, so it's fun. It's like a slot machine, you're playing Las Vegas, the slot machine, the slots. So that's what I do. I could go from one track to the next track. I see the big races. I like to bet the big races, not cheap places. The big races. So because I think they're more involved that that everybody's going to be trying. So you could get good long shots. Favorites hooked up with the long shots. So you could play. So I was a gambler when I was young. I played everything: casino, dice, baccarat, uh, everything. That I could get my hands on. Go Vegas, Atlantic City. When they came in Atlantic City in the '80s, I was going there. So drive 2.5 hours from Queens to get there. It was fun. Do I like to drive today? No, I don't know. It's time when you're young, you don't sleep much. You always like to bounce around. You want the excitement. So it was fun. It was a lot of there was every night there was something in a different club, even nightclub, hotel. They had their own thing too. Hotel, like Pan Am building. You know, you know, I, a lot of places was a lot of things happening back in the 70s, 80s. It was a lot of fun. The wise guys like to you watch the movie, the good fellas, bouncing around. That's where it was like East New York. That's how they got the fucking idea from. The movie Goodfellas. Uh, he was from Brooklyn. East New York. Everything was happening over there. It was not Long Island. Long Island came in later on. Queens came on later on. Everything was Brooklyn. Everything in Manhattan. And we would go over the bridge from Williamsburg Bridge. We used to go to Manhattan. It was fun. Go see the studio. I mean, the disco in Manhattan. Everything was wild, uh, as I remember. But I don't do that no more. I'm old, and I gotta face reality. Well, the fun stops. A lot of the guys you hear, a lot of fun starts like when you started hitting the 30s, 31, because you're looking to settle down. You got a wife, or you are, So there's not too many guys after the 30s, 40s really, bouncing around. That when you're in your 20, 20 in the 20, from 20 to 30, you're hopping, you're going all over. You feel macho man, you you want to see everything. You don't want to miss anything, so you do everything, try everything, and it was fun. But there's no more those kind of funs anymore. So I'm just about here to try to see who's here, who's what. If I see any really hostilities, I don't know. But I see a lot of people, the same faces. Somebody's trying to be me, Giacomo Amato. I don't know. What do you think? Is Giacomo Amato going to give me a like? Giacomo Amato, there's a lot of Giacomato. I don't know, with my face. Okay, so let me look. First, I'm going to take a sip of my water. I say this way I could finish it because I'm doing a lot of work at the house right now. Painting. I'm staying busy. I like to work. I like to stay, exercise, work. I never did that handyman special. I did not fucking do that. I always have people doing it for me. So, but now, because you always gotta freshen up the house, So I gotta do things myself to stay busy because it's fucking boring not doing nothing. That's why I created this podcast. First it was try to sell my books, but right now my books are being damaged, so it's gonna take time. But people still asking me for autograph books, so I'm selling it that way. I'm not getting reviews, but I got a couple reviews. Some people bought a book, the '80s, and gave me good review a couple days ago, and they gave me a good review on the auto books. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Time will tell. If you like, Primo from Chicago, he bought my books. So because he didn't care what anybody said, he wants to see it himself. He says, "I'm a paisan, and I want to read it. I want to read your story because what you're saying, I seen it in Chicago. So I want to read your story, and then I tell you myself." That was honest. That's a good guy, right? So I trust him because he's the type of guy that he's got his own brain. He's not listening to people what they're telling them. He wants to see for himself. So that's how I am, and people should do that. Don't listen to other people what they tell you. You want to see, you want to hear yourself, not somebody else is telling you, and then you make your own decision. So I gotta read some of the guys here because that's why I really did the live chat podcast to be able to talk to my people, not in Noah. Everybody's telling me Noah and Noah. I wasn't about to know nobody, so I was reading. And when I see attacking me and then attacking the people that supported me, I get pissed off. And I wish I could be in person, to react. But I'm on a computer, so I just don't have the patience, to just mellow out. So that's why I'm afraid even to read. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to read. We'll see who's what. I already got an hour and 15 minutes. An hour and 44 minutes, 14, almost an hour and 15 minutes on the show talking non-stop. That's not easy to do. if you're telling bullshit. So let me go to the top, waste a little bit of time, scroll down to see who's who, who's what. Is it okay, guys? I'm gonna take another sip. Look at this. This is the first time I finished the wine with you guys here on the show. I have wine every night with dinner. I don't drink liquor no more because it's healthy. I got my stomach. Hey, I show you. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you. See, I got hernias. See, hernias coming out. Bullets. I had a colostomy here. See, here, all kinds of shit. So I'm gonna be 73. So I could still live a little while and say fuck everything. But nah, I wanna see, you know, how long I could ride the ride that what I'm trying to do now. Because I'm excited with the live chat, could talk to people with friends, and I hope everybody could become my friend because I want to be a friend. I don't want to be cursing people out. I did that when I was in the street. You know, I came from the restaurant, so you always got to be nice to people. If you're gonna make people come to you and eat in your restaurant, you got to be nice. But if somebody comes into your restaurant and he says that this food, this is wrong, this is wrong, he says it to you. You say no problem, take the food out. You know, would you like anything? Or you give them, you try to give them a new dinner. If they say no, 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 thank you, you don't charge them for the check. You give them a free pass. Okay, and you respect the people. You feel sick inside of you because you just lost a customer because the chef fucked it up or the waiter fucked it up or somebody did. So because you're the owner, it's the chef could have did it. It could have been the waiter. Maybe they bring out the food at the right time. So cold food, whatever. So if somebody's nice, this is the point I'm trying to make out. He talks to you nice, then you try to recompensate them by try to give them another dinner, or if you said no, you don't make them pay for the check, and you apologize and you go. But now, if you got a guy going there and sit down because it used to happen that shakedowns. This is shakedowns when people used to squeeze restaurant to pay for protection, or they had the windows broken. They would go to a restaurant, they eat, right? And they would call the owner and said, tell the guy, this sucks. This is no fucking good. You give me this shit, and make a scene, in the restaurant. And then what the owner would go to do, oh, what are you talking about? I'm trying to make people because now you got other people listening, right? So anyway, the point, not to go further, the point is, after they settle this dispute, the guy would tell the owner, you see what we just did to you? We could do that again and again. Every night you got business, you got busy, you're busy in your restaurant. We're going to send people here and do what you just did. And we could kill your fucking business. So either give us something for protection, and nobody's going to do that to you because if you do, just we handle it, and nobody's going to break your windows. Those are the shakedown that used to be back the days when they used to shake you down. So did you guys know that? You didn't know that. Now you just learned something. Okay, so let me see. I can't believe how fast. Okay, you got 4 5. Thank you. Thank you, PK. Yeah. And like I said, I got it from being involved with groups. My Facebook, I got 1,700 uh, people there. I got a lot of people too on Instagram. And I belong to a lot of groups, mafia groups in Facebook. So they got hundreds of thousands, 20,000, 15,000. So to scrape up 5,000, it's not really a lot. I'm thinking I'm going to get more as time goes on because a lot of people don't want to be here because they've been attacked. And a lot of people, which a lot of people tell me, don't do that, don't do that. Just ignore them, but don't block them because when you block them, you block their people too. Their friends. So you're not just losing that person, you lose their friends. So that's not good for you. I didn't know that, but that makes sense. So I'm not gonna do that no more. I'm just gonna ignore. Okay, try to watch a live miss sometime. Okay, well, I'm here. I'm here. I'm doing shorts too. I'm doing the 3 nights, which though was my nights operation when I ran the car games. But then I used to go, off nights to other places, other clubs, because you gotta bounce around, make friends. So that's what I'm gonna be doing here. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 o'clock. I'm gonna do the live chat. I'm gonna do shorts. I'm gonna make videos too. So fit in with a lot of weight because I want to build up on my channel and friends, not enemies. I don't want enemies. Okay, now we got Jaco Moamato here. Hello, friend. Buy my book. Okay, so this is one. I'm asking myself hello, and I'm gonna buy my book. Okay, so now do you know Jackie the Nose, who's with God? It hurt. Lots of people say he was a good guy. Yes, yes, he wasn't not a bad guy. No, yes, I knew him from being around Johnny. He was always around Johnny, so I didn't speak to him. I didn't even speak too much to John either. I low and goodbye, shake heads, you know, give a bow, you know, give a wing, respect, because I was not a main guy, and I was not in the group. I was related to the Rastelli. So every time we had an event, I would be there. But I used to play cards with John Gotti. I played cards in Maspid, and I used to go to Ozone Park and play head to head. And then one night, one incident, I lost a big pot. We were involved, in a big pot. And this guy, I was in my 20s, and this guy beat me with king full. I had jacks full, and he won the pot. He said, at the table, we were like 8 people, but the dealer 9 people, and people watching the game. Because in the social club you always got other people watching, but not too close because you don't want to think you're giving signals. So you stay in the background and you listen to the game. And he won the pot, and he says to me, I just lost. It was a big pot. He said to me, "What do you think? You play with fucking kids in the park?" I made that comment. So, I got, I mean, with the fucking pot, take your money. He didn't have to make that comment. So I looked at John. I stare at John because I'm his guest. I'm in this fucking house. And then when we run into mass pit, I play with the main guys. We'll play blackjack, different type of blackjack. Everybody gets a turn to play blackjack in the round table. So, but it was like blackjack. And Johnny stood up and told the guy, just shut the fuck up, take your money and keep your mouth shut. Okay? Don't call this, kid in the park. All right? You don't know him. So don't talk that way, you stupid. And he said that. So so at least John stood up for me and it made me feel better. Now, I was belong to this. I'll tell you the story with this Gary Jerkins. We did the interview with the podcast. He liked my books. We talk on the phone. He told me, I believe you. I read your books. So even when I make my books with the mafia, he gave me a review. He said Gary Jerkins gave me a review on my book, and it's on Amazon. Okay, so then I had Joe Pastore, his cousin Dudu, and other guys were attacking me on his what do you call Facebook group, the Gang Wire, Gary Jerkin Wireland Podcast. Okay, Gang Wire. It's still there. So he was he wasn't sticking up for me, for these people. So he told me, he goes, you know what I mean? This is part of the game. You got to deal with it, you know. I said, but you put me on your show. We talk. I was helping them build this fucking channel too, because I was coming up with a lot of stories. People wanted to hear it, and he didn't. He didn't side with me, like try to stick up for me, try to tell the people, he's a good guy. Like John Gotti I just told you he did. He didn't do that. So you know what? I said, I'm out of here, and I stopped going on his show and his Gangland Wire and postings. You know, so that's how I always been. If I don't get treated with respect, I'm going to come back at you. That's how I am. It's my nature. So now we still talk. We're still friends. He sees my podcast. He sees this. I post things. He's friends with me on Facebook. He's friends on Instagram. Like I am still with the Bill Stack. Bill Stack. About he does the gangland. So we're still friends on Facebook. They read my book. They gave me a review. They're in the book. They're there. So now I said enough. I just want to continue reading here. So okay. So now we got you, Jacket the nose. Yes. Okay. Now we got Giacomo. Forget about it. Giacomo. Look all this Giacomo. Now we got James Johnson. James Johnson is James Lambone, and he does that show too, and he does Mob Gen Fake. And he's doing a lot of things, and he's coming here now by his name, James Johnson. He says hi, Jack, and I'm gonna say hi, James. Okay, so that's it. Okay, I'm moving forward. So we got okay, yeah, we got James Johnson and Giacomo Otto. So I'm gonna go all the way down. There, look at this. They took over. There's nobody else here. Okay, we got Chris Capello. Good evening, John. All right, Chris Capello is from our beach. So when I talk to him, we know the background about our beach. He's a lot younger than me, and we know the same people from our beach, right, Chris? So good evening to you. Thank you for coming by. And so far, you're the only friend I got here that I know from the old days. Okay. Then we got Paulie Morgan. Hi, Jack. Hi, Paul. How you doing, Paul? Thank you for stopping by. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to slow down. We're going to know James Johnson. We're going to know Jack Amato. That's what I was told from Primo. Ignore him. Ignore him. Okay. So we're going to know it. What else we're going to do? Okay. Step on the toes. I'm afraid of stairs. That's a good saying, Chris. That's right. We didn't step on toes, right, Chris? You were taught that way, right? From Russo on the Bay. Tell them. Russo on the Bay from our beach. Okay. So we're going to go down. Now we got Paul. I email you. You were supposed to send me a signed book. Paul, I didn't see your email. You could resend the email. And I think last time we mentioned that if you got Zelle bank account, we could do it. Send it right away. So, so you got to email me. You were supposed to send me a signed book. Okay, you got to email me. You got the email? I could email you uh, the information, and we could do it, and we do it. So send me the email again. I'll look it up after I get out of the show, and we'll move forward. I didn't waste no time when the Primo bought the 3 books. We did it in one day, and I went to the post office and mailed them to him, and they should be getting them on Monday or Tuesday. Primo. So we could do the same thing. You send me the email. I go to the post office tomorrow morning. I mean tomorrow, and I send it to you. I don't fool around. If people are serious, I'm serious. Um, okay. No, supposed to. Okay, so Paul says no. Supposed to Zell, but I want to connect on a text or email first. Okay, so test me. Uh, well, email. You could do either both. I think I gave it to you. And James Johnson got a hold of my email, so now he's emailing me. He wants to talk to me in the email, but now he's here, so I could talk to James Johnson here. You know, see now, see he's saying, Paulie, Paulie, you see, James Johnson is calling you out by saying, Paulie, did you pay him? Don't talk to him. This is guys that had enemies. They're not even haters, they're enemies. So ignore them because you start to get into conversation and they're going to get you upset. So the best thing, I'm going to take Primo advice, ignore them, and let them talk to each other. Giacomo could talk to Jane Johnson, and whoever's in their group that they know each other could talk to each other. So you could see over here, you see the scroll down, you see James Johnson and Giacomo Amato. Paul, do you host card game at Amici? Yes, I did. I did, Paul. Did you ever play in my place? Yes, I did. I ran the Monday night football games too at Amici, and I ran the card games too. Yeah, poker games. Not what do you call it? Texas Hold'em. Texas Hold'em came later on. We played the seven cut start, crisscross, 55, 44, which is like Texas Hold'em, but you get four cards in your hand, not two. But then we used to have 23, which you still get four cards in your hand, five on board, but you use two on your card. See, that's how the Texas Hold'em came out from games we used to play underground. And now it's a big phenomena thing about the Texas Hold'em. I played a lot of times. You need a lot of luck. It's not really a lot of skill. You need a lot of patience. I don't have no patience. I'm always on the go. So you got to sit there and wait it out. Yes, I had the card game. So now Jack is asking you, yes, Paul, we will host card game with the watch. He's trying to be me. I don't know who he is. I don't know. I got no idea. Okay, so I have I have life hour from Woodbine, Jen from Toronto area, Jack. I live, yeah. The Zell, what they tell me, is only in USA. So, but you could get the book in Canada, from Amazon, that's what you're trying to ask me. Yes, you could get the books on Amazon by Toronto. There's a Sicilian town, Woodbine, Toronto. A lot of Sicilians there. Okay, so we go down again. Paulie, I got a story for you, Jack. All right, tell me. You want to tell me here or you want to tell me in my email? It's a private. You could tell me. Uh, so we got Jags, James Johnson. Okay, same thing. Paulie. My niece is also having an issue with stalker. Let me put this on. Glasses. My niece is having an issue with a stalker at Echo Park. Echo Park, where my niece worked. My niece was 16. My sister knew Jack and went to him at the chore. Went to him at the chore. What year was that? I did a lot of things. I did a lot of good deeds. So I don't know, Paul. What year? Okay, Paul, at Echo Park. Yeah, I used to go to Echo Park. A lot of people came there to eat at Avicii. Okay, now we got Tyler Schumer. Jaco, do you ever go to St. Pancras Church? Yes, I got married there. St. Pancras Church. Yes, I got married there in 1974. I had a model pizzeria right across the street from the St. Pancras School between 68th Street and 68th Place. So that means true. Are you from Glendale? Okay. Play 52, pick up 52 topic. Okay, again with this. Okay. So Tyler Schumer, were you involved with the priest touching back in the day? The priest touch you? That happened a lot in that church. No, I was not going to that kind of church. I was in church in Sicily. They were bad priests. Yeah, the priests were not good people to trust. Okay, so we got a tell you sure. My uncle said you didn't own that place. What place? Okay, Talashum. My uncle said, your uncle said you didn't know that place. Who's your uncle? Talashuma. Talishu, show. Okay. So, yeah, my father owned the pizza, Talashuma. My father owned the pizzeria when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Then I came back and I opened up on the Amato Pizzeria in 76. Ask your uncle. He said, your uncle. Ask your uncle. In 1976, I opened up the pizzeria on Myrtle Avenue. Amato, the Duffin brothers. Okay. Yeah. They were around me, the Dolphin, but they were kids, 13, 14 years old. Talia, yeah, now I remember you, yes. So, yes, your uncles, okay. So, my father did. Yes, when they were there, yeah, yes, they're right, you're right. Yes, I was young. Yes, we owned the building too. So, okay. So, I'm caught up here. All right. So, I only got 9 likes. I got 10. But, if you go watching my videos, I did videos by John Gotti. I did Sonny Black Napolitano. I got a lot of people watching them. I don't know, 500, 600. And if you go back in the beginning of my videos, you see the numbers in the thousand. So people coming in and watching all my videos, they're trying to catch up, learn about me, so they don't have to do this now. They're catching up to my videos, so they can always watch my video tomorrow, the next day. So they got plenty time. I ask everybody to go back and watch my videos and learn about me, about my stories. So I'm gonna take primo advice that I'm not gonna block nobody no more. Just ignore it and move on, and that's it. Uh, so Talia, thank you for coming by. The Dolphins were good kids, tough kids. Okay, Talia says my uncle said that Massino. My uncle. I don't think the uncles knew about Messino. Your uncles. I don't. I don't. I. Don't- I never seen them again when they got older because I moved in 1980. I moved to our beach and then Long Island, so I never seen your uncles again. So, we're talking about they were younger than me, so I'm trying to learn the beef here. Okay, Talia, you're trying to learn to the beef. All right, but I guess so. Then you're friends with these people over here. This guy James Jambone of this 52 topic. Are you friends with them? Because if you from Glendale, you got to be going to the show. I think watching them. They didn't know them. I need unblock everyone. They didn't know them. Maybe later, yes. I don't know. They're in the street. So Messino became a capo. He was still in Maspin. So in our beach. So I was gone. Uh, Savatali. So if anybody knows about Salvatali, you could ask Salvatali. He's still alive. If I was pushed around, he could answer that question. He's alive. If I got kicked in the ass, I got smacked, or I got pushed down, he could tell you. So, everybody talks, but nobody knows. My sister and her brother had the time when your son wedding. Whoa. My sister and her brother friend at the time went to your son's wedding. Which son? My son Anthony? My son Anthony got married Leonard's in Grand Neck. I think it was the name Leonard's. Is that what you're talking about, Paulie? So, who was friends with Anthony? Okay, so we got that. Those two. No, I have no idea who they are. You don't know who they are? Okay, well, apparently I'm thinking that you know them, but it's okay. Uh, okay, so but if those dolphins were your uncles, and one of them is alive, let them come by on my show here and tell me that, what you said earlier about Joe Messino and Salvatali. How do they know? So tell them to come to the show. I could talk to them. Talia, I know them when they were kids. One died, right? You told me that, I know I heard of it, because, like you say, people in the street always, the word gets around. Uh, okay, police says yes. What is the end? Because I'm confused. I'm talking to Atalia. Paulie, my sister with another wedding. Okay. Adam, I believe, got married. No, Adam never got married in New York. He got married in Arizona. So it wasn't Adam, Paulie. I got three sons, one Anthony, one Angelo, and then Adam. And Adam got married in Arizona. I need to. Okay, so we got yes, you know them from Amici. Okay, what's his name? Paulie, what was his name? Your sister with a boyfriend? What's the name? One of my uncle is dead. Yeah, you told me that. So tell your other uncle to come on board. Maybe he could remember. Which one died? The older one or the younger one? I don't know. Talia. They knew if I was tough. They knew if I was tough, Talia. Sister boyfriend. Okay. Police. Sister boyfriend to one of your sons on school. Sister boyfriend to one of your sons on school. Adam went to school there. He played football. So it could have been Adam, but not at the wedding. He didn't get married. My son didn't get married in New York. He got married in Arizona. Uh, Sister boyfriend to one of your sons on school. Oh, taught. He was a teacher. Well, mention the teacher's name. I know the teachers. They used to come to my restaurant and eat, from West Hempstead. Paul, from West Hempstead school, because that's where they went to school. Oh, okay. So does your son know Sammy Guevara? Does okay? See, Talia. Okay, now I gotta stop answering your question. I just told you. Bring in your uncle, the Dolphin brother, and I'll talk to him, and you can listen. Okay, so that's it. Okay, Paul. Yes, G, yes, GW. Okay, okay, all right. Okay, so that's it, and thank you for stopping by, guys. Like I said, Paulie, I look for your email. Thank you for coming by. PTK, thank you. George Washington School. George Washington School. Uh, George Washington School. I don't know. There was Franklin Square, Noy Park School, West Hampstead School, George Washington. Sounds very familiar, but no, I got so many things on my brain that maybe I'm just losing it. Make Richie, yeah, I know Richie, yeah. Minchek, yes, yes, Paul, yes, okay. We were very close friends. Yes, he knew all my three sons. He knew Anthony, he knew Angelo, and he knew Adam. Yeah, Richie Minchek. How's he doing, Richie Minchek? Yeah, we had a lot of fun together. Rich, a good guy, a nice Polak boy, nice good guy. Yes, sir. Yes, Minchek. Yes, and then I don't know. You know Kelly. He was Kelly, Mr. Kelly, lived in West Hempstead. 50-50 has some health issue. See, I'm sorry to hear that. How's he doing now? How's he doing now? I know he was very close to his mom. He loved. My sister is Patty. Yeah, remember Patty? They were very close. She was good to him, but he was very in love with his mother. And I used to tell him, you got a good girl here. She loves you. She does everything to you. So Patty was your sister. Mom does. Okay, boy. Mom does. Okay, okay. Mom died. Well, it's a lot of years. How's Minchek doing? How's Minchek doing? Uh, Paul, how's Minchek doing? Patty was good. She could have been a good wife to Minchek, but he wanted to stay with his mom. I don't know. Some men they never grow up. He was a good guy. He loved the car racing. What do you call Daytona races? He always used to come down. To watch the races. Patty used to buy him the tickets. Richie Rely now Delhi with his Parkinson. See? It's a small world, and he was a skinny guy, healthy, uh, happy guy. Was good to the kids in school. He had he had an odd deal with his mom. Yep, yep. I used to tell him, you got to break away from mom. I had another friend of mine. What the fuck it was his name? What was his name? And he was attached to his mother too. Same story. He didn't want to get married. Wanted to stay with his mother. Genie boy, we used to call him Genie boy. See, there's a lot of Genie boys. Johnny boy, Genie boy. There's a he used to be 50 years old too, attached to his mother, and he wanted to stay with his mother. And then at the end, his mother died, and he was stuck by himself. So there's people like that. Okay. Talia, it's not that I don't want to talk to you. You're talking to me about if I knew the Dolphin brothers. I just told you. I told you. You said something about John Messino. I don't know about if they knew John Messino. But everybody, if you're in the street, which the Dolphin ended up being in the street, they were doing a lot of wheeling and dealing in Glendale. They took over Glendale, with the Irish, whatever, you know, they were doing things, I know this guy, Big Chris. I think he was Polish. He was tough guy in Glendale. I know a lot of people. Because I went there, but I never seen the Dolphin brothers again. So I don't know unless something happens, then you get to bump into them. There's some kind of dealing you want to talk to, but I never seen them again till I moved out from Glendale, and that was in 1980. I moved away. I was gone. So at that time, how old it could have been? Teenagers. How old it could have been? Talia, I'm having a conversation with you. How old is your uncle is alive? How old is he? Today, how old is he? Can you answer that? Talia, how old is the uncle Dolphin? How old is he? I'm talking to you. You say you want to have a conversation. How old is he? Going once, going twice. Yeah, 2 hours, I'm almost there. Okay. All right. Good night, guys. Yes, Paulie, he was a nice guy. In check, a very nice guy. Okay. All right, guys. Have a good night. I got 10 likes. That's good. So I had I was telling the story about Carmine Galenti and Phil Rusty Rostelli. I was in the middle, and I got hurt. I got shot. I don't know. It had nothing to do with them, but it was during that time that they were there. Okay, so enjoy the evening. I'm gonna enjoy tomorrow. It's gonna be a fun day. Watching the races. Okay, we got somebody just came in now. What I don't know what it means. Willie Pop, New Jersey. 100. I don't know. What does that mean? Willie Pop. Just to make conversation. Talia says to make conversation. Uh, Talia. So then he said, why would they tell me that then? Tell you what then? Talia, they're not talking to you. You're talking to yourself. I just told you. I just talked to you. How old is your uncle. Late 50 and 60? No, they got to be older than that. They are in their late 50s and 60s. I don't know what the fuck that means, Talia. Late 50s and late 60s? Is that what you're saying? That means to support your channel. Okay, thank you for explaining it to me, Willie. Thank you. I was just leaving, but I'm coming back Monday night, and we're going to continue talking about the life in the street during the regime of Carmine Galenti and Rusty Rastelli. You know, I know some of the guys that got whacked. So I will be back. So enjoy the weekend and peace, prosperity to James Johnson and Giacomato. So we'll see where we go. Um, okay, thank you, Willie. Thank you for coming by. Thank you. All right. Have a good night. See you Monday. Or maybe before. I don't know. I may do something. I don't know. But good night.